Well, look, I think we might get started. Thanks everyone so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. We're really excited about our partnership with Wolters Kluwer in Australia. And so joining Liz Studham and I today is Ben Miller. He's the Senior Content Management Analyst for CCH IQ APAC. And he basically heads up the content team that create and update all the fantastic CCH IQ content that we're going to be talking about today will be available in BOMA. Now, before we get started and before I hand over to Ben, I'll just quickly give you a quick rundown on our partnership with Wolters Kluwer. You might be aware that we launched a partnership with them in New Zealand last year, and you probably will have seen some of their content in your library in Australia this year as well. And this content proved massively popular both in Australia and New Zealand, and we've had a lot of our Australian-based partners asking when the content would be more widely available, and today is the day, which we're super excited about. So for anyone not familiar with CCH IQ, obviously Ben will talk you through it in more detail in a minute, but from our perspective, it really provides, or it will provide you with actionable customer-facing content and tools on industry events, such as legislative change, and it's going to really help you drive growth and revenue opportunities with your existing client base and leads. And so this partnership, having the Wolters Kluwer CCH IQ content in BOMA, is really going to allow you to take this information and easily disseminate it to your clients and prospects via your BOMA account. So no more mail merging, Word documents and printing letters. It's overall a much more streamlined and efficient process. I think it's worth just pausing for a second on the value of the Wolters Kluwer content. And the key point here is just to note that they're across the developments as they happen. So the content team that Ben heads, they actually also look after the daily tax news. And as a result, they know immediately when things are happening in Australian tax, and they adjust the content accordingly based on the customer need. So this is done in real time, updating, and Ben will sort of talk you through how that works in a few more minutes. But the reason that we're so excited about this partnership, and also the reason that we definitely see the value in their content, is their digital first approach. And I'm sure you're all familiar with how all business is becoming much more digitally focused. And a key tenet of this is really being able to find things quickly and efficiently. And so items that Ben's going to cover later, like topic guides and practical tools, are at the forefront of this concept of efficiency. And in the digital world, not only do you want to access deep research and commentary, the Wolters Kluwer content is also going to provide you with practical explanations, quick answers, workflow tools, and calculators. So a lot to unpack there, Ben. I'll hand over to you because I think you're really the best person to give us a really deep understanding of CCH IQ.
All right, thank you, Charles. And from the outset, again, to BOMA, thank you for allowing me to jump on this call and speak to your customers and to all the BOMA customers out there. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here today. And I want to talk to you about sort of the content that we create so that we can provide you with all the tools that you need to advise your clients, especially in those areas of tax, which is something that can be quite fundamental to overall their business needs. One time I remember, I'll never forget it really, it's, I was a junior accountant and I was speaking to an architect and he explained to me, it's like, you're my tax guy, you're my business advisor. I'm really good at being an architect, but I don't know everything about being a business owner or what I need to do with the tax. And so one thing that I really admire about the BOMA platform is that it gives an accountant that ability to provide that real information to those business owners so that they can better run their business. And I feel like, as Charles mentioned, it's a natural fit to bring in that tax analysis to that position, because overall that's where our bread and butter exists. And I feel like that's sort of something in which we are able collectively to create a much more agile sort of landscape for business owners to deal with their tax going forward. And that's sort of something that I feel like accountants are going to be at the epicenter of over the next 5 to 10 to 15 years of our industry. So I'm very, very happy to be here and showcase what CCH IQ is and how it can be part of the BOMA platform, hopefully to expand your business opportunities as an accounting practice. I'm going to assume that some of you have already seen CCH IQ, but for those of you who haven't, perhaps you've maybe only purchased, for example, maybe the Master Tax Guide. What CCH IQ does is it uses that real-time processing, that real-time publishing system that Charles sort of mentioned at the outset, and it all starts with those trigger events, which is what I've got there on the left-hand column. We obtain primary and secondary source materials directly from the publishers of those materials through our sophisticated web crawling engine. It provides us with assurances here at Wolters Kluwer that we don't miss anything that is released in the Australian tax market. So what are the trigger events? Well, they can come directly from the federal government, as I just sort of mentioned, primary sources. Obviously, the Treasury is a big part of that as well. Or alternatively, they can come from other areas such as the ATO, who is obviously the regulator of taxation in Australia, or the courts. Sometimes it's the judiciary that makes a decision that will update interpretation of tax law, and we need to adjust accordingly, and we need to advise our clients of that accordingly. So effectively, what is a trigger event? It is that piece of tax news that comes across the wire that your clients will need to know about. Now, what do we do with that piece of tax news? Obviously, we report on it, but then, like I said, I've already sort of mentioned the web crawling engine, but what we really do is experts in technology is the next pillar of CCH IQ. And in a bit more detail, what it does is it reads the primary source materials and understands what a trigger event is and what a trigger event is not. So it runs a high-level set of analysis against those materials and matches it with our current technical database and basically hypothesizes what a CCH IQ event is. Now, why is this important to you and BOMA? Well, what it means is for us, for people like myself, a subject matter expert in our team, it means that we can really spend the majority of our time reviewing what's really relevant for us and what's really relevant in terms of being able to communicate with the business and high net worth individual clients throughout the country. It really gives us an opportunity to focus our efforts on providing that information that's going to be best for you and your business. We're not necessarily sitting there trawling through volumes and volumes of new legislation where we get the technology to really pinpoint where we're sort of need to be looking at, and so that we can spend our time focusing on that exact area. So once we do have that focused mindset on particularly what piece of tax news or piece of change is there, what we then do is we do client profiling. So basically part of every single CCH IQ event will basically be a client profile. It will be there, I would say more, it would be implied more than anything else. Basically, it's the type of clients that will specifically be or could directly be affected by tax news. The purpose of what we are producing at CCH, it's not a generic quote, this is nice to know information for your clients. No, that's not what we're doing at all. What we're doing is this is direct information that will affect them. And we're trying to provide you through the BOMA platform with an opportunity to provide them with that information that they need for their business or maybe for their superannuation fund, and we're trying to give it to you in real time. So then that's where it comes into that last section, which is your clients. So we're getting the information in real time. We're analyzing it in real time, and we're getting it quickly because of the technology allows us to really focus on the area in which it needs to go. we're understanding specifically where the clients are, who are going to be affected, are going to be, and what they need to do. And then, of course, the final aspect of it, and this is part of the BOMA part of it, is that this is information and guidance that is going to be directly read by your clients. So, like I just sort of mentioned, the Master Tax Guide at the outset, unlike the other CCH products that we have on our market, which are mainly written for accounting and tax professionals directly, such as yourself, the campaigns here in BOMA with CCH IQ, they're specifically written for business owners and those high net worth individuals that are embracing a tailored approach that you are providing them through the BOMA platform. So that's sort of how we are providing the content that, from these tax matters, these tax news items that these individuals or these business owners need to know, and we try and get them to them directly and in real time. Now, without further ado, I think that it's about time that I sort of moved on from the theory of what CCH IQ is and actually show you what you will be subscribing to within the BOMA platform. So if I could get to take over the screen and actually launch BOMA and the Wolters Kluwer CCH Premium Library.
So hopefully everyone can see that. Can you see that, Ben?
Definitely can.
So what we'll do is we'll go into the library. What we really love about the Wolters Kluwer content is that it's written for your client from the perspective of you. You can change it. And it's basically going to say, what is this new thing or new change? Why does it matter to me? What should I do? And next steps. So it's a real opportunity for you to engage with them and then drive business back into your firm. So here we are in the library, and I'm going to go into the Wolters Kluwer Premium Library. My account is set to Australia, so we're only seeing Australian content, obviously. Ben, what would you like to look at first?
I feel like it's worthwhile, let's not beat around the bush here and just go straight to the third one there, which is the ATO scrutiny of family trust distributions.
Cool. So you can see here an image is provided for you for your social post. Obviously, you know that your social post and longer form for your email, and this can be shared on your website as well. So this is obviously for family businesses, Ben?
Yeah, that's right. And to give you a bit of background about this, I mean, this, from the media sort of publications point of view, this really blindsided us. So this is definitely one of those pieces of information that come across the wire that we did not expect until it was literally in our laps. And so, and ultimately, I mean, there's been a lot of fanfare that has come about as a result of this information throughout the industry over the past sort of 4 or 5 months that it's been there. But obviously, it's very, very important for business owners, especially if they have been reading this sort of stuff in the news. And it's always, from my point of view, it's always a bit difficult when the news outlets are starting to put the words tax in their headings, because it means that as an accountant, you need to be providing more information. More people are going to call up and go, what does this mean? So what we tried to do here was we tried to, or we are putting together sort of more of a snapshot as to what Section 100A really is. And essentially, as you can see there in big writing in the heading there, how do I avoid the penalty rates? Because of course, if Section 100A does apply, basically the tax commissioner just disregards the distribution from family trust to the beneficiary. And if it disregards that distribution, then basically the trustee becomes taxable under another section. I think it's Section 97 or thereabouts. I can't exactly remember off the top of my head, but it's definitely taxed at the highest marginal rate plus Medicare levy. And so essentially, that's sort of what we wanted to provide for those business clients. An understanding is this is really what has happened inside, and I can understand it from the business owner's point of view, from the accountant's point of view as well. It can be a bit tricky, 100A as well. This is also this is probably the biggest piece of news that's happened in trusts in the last 10 years. And really, the thing I think that, as opposed to it being legislative change, the tax office has basically said, we're just changing our interpretation.
Right.
So this is what we used to think. Now we just changed our mind. When that happens, there's a lot of anxiety that exists inside those of us in the market, as professionals, and our industry is sort of starting to scratch our head about it. Go to ourselves, well, have what we've been doing is right, and how do we make sure we get it right? And so that's, I think, what I really wanted to focus on. And I think that what's core, if you are sort of going to be sending this to a customer, a client of yours who's a family trust, and maybe is putting together distributions for adult children, you wanted to make sure that you've given them a clear understanding of that concept of ordinary and family and ordinary commercial dealing, which I sort of go into there. There's about 4 or 5 dot points there. And I think that I've tried to written it in a way that it's not really, it's treating those family businesses, with an understanding that they understand how family trust works, because they have been doing it for quite a while. So it's not treating it; it's treating them with a high level of respect and the understanding of tax law. But then it's sort of still something where they can call back, and to make sure, because in my mind, if I'm sending that to a client of mine who is, say, for example, a motor mechanic that's running a family trust, has a family business, I actually do want them to call me back about it. And I do actually want to provide them with that aspect where I say, it's going to be okay. We're going to make sure we get it right, because I think overall, 98 to 99% of our clients are going to be more than fine with this situation, and going forward, that will be the case. And I feel like it's very important to be able to communicate that with our clients, because, as I mentioned at the outset, this is something that has been hitting on the news websites. This has been hitting the tabloid news websites, and the last thing I want is my clients to get really anxious about their tax dealings. I want them to just run their business, and I'm looking after their tax dealings. So that's sort of where we were at, and that's sort of how I approached putting together this piece of content, Liz.
I was just going to say, so if this is sent out by an email, obviously when they reply to that email, they'll reply directly to you, but there are options in the email to bring a button in, and that button might take them to a page on your website, for example. We can send you information on that. And then you can have more information on your website, or perhaps it's a Calendly invite link or something that you put in there, so that people can make a time to meet up with you and check that they're happy. Should we go back to the content?
Yeah, let's go back to the content library, and that's sort of something that's there. And what I'll get you to do, Liz, is I'll get you to utilize the search feature. And if you could type in the word company, because it is nice to scroll down and see all the sort of things like that as well. But I do understand that there is a point of time where we we don't want to be going on for forever. So let's move on. The one thing that I wanted to showcase here when you type in the word company is that obviously we just looked at family trust there, and perhaps you've only got a few family trusts, perhaps you might be more of a superannuation accountant or a company accountant, and that's fine, because what I tend to try and do, especially with the tax things, is I tend to try to utilize the tax entities as much as I possibly can in the titles itself, so that if you're looking for something in relation to, for example, companies or superannuation, just type that into the search filter, and you should be able to get a piece of content there. So if I may, Liz, would you be able to please click on how the temporary loss carryback applies to your company? And so the thing about this event here is that, unlike what happened with the family trust thing and the ATO just bringing out 3 draft rulings out of nowhere, and saying basically that they're changing their mind on a fairly big piece of of tax trust law. This was something that was jumped out at us through the federal budget. So this happened, I think it was in October 2020. It was originally brought into our tax regime by the Treasurer in the federal budget. And of course, the federal budget really is the focal point for the majority of tax change that occurs in Australia on any given year. Obviously, as I mentioned before, the ATO or the judges may make some decisions that we weren't necessarily fully considering at the time, but for the most part, we're looking towards the Treasury and the Treasurer themselves to actually provide that tax reform. And I think this is an interesting one, the loss carryback, because even though it was October 2020, I think it definitely runs through that concept that, yes, it's great to have information that is part of the news cycle, but this definitely points out that just because it's not current news right now, doesn't mean that it doesn't affect your clients right now. And the one thing about this event is that I think we're about in the middle of it right now. I think it's a 4-year running event, and we're 2 years into it right now. And I think that it's important to sort of, if you do have company clients, and in particular with the types of financial years that we have had recently, with everything that's gone on, perhaps some of your clients may have forgotten about something like this because it is outside of the news cycle right now. Maybe they're just not sure about sort of how it works. Perhaps it could be something that's in their too hard basket, because as I mentioned, as I always draw back on, our business clients, they're experts in their business. They're not necessarily experts in the tax law because that's what they pay us to do. And so what we've done here is to provide them with content and some sort of brief analysis as to what the temporary loss carryback is and how it may affect them. But then the one thing that we do go forward and to provide them is actually some practical tools that they could use in order to determine on their own whether they want to apply this law. So if you could, Liz, click on that useful checklist there that we have created. And so it opens up in a PDF format. And effectively, this is where we're talking about with this practical content, this digital first strategy that we have. So for those of you who are familiar with items such as the Master Tax Guide and the books and whatnot, you would get the index, you would find where the company loss sections are. It's probably in chapter 3 of the Master Tax Guide. And then you would go through and you would read through a couple of pages of the book to figure out how it works, how it operates, and how you can actually make the claim in a particular company tax return. So the concept of the digital first strategy is really to provide that information for you in 1 or 2 pages in a yes/no format that gives you specific guidance, so that it's tailored so that you can work through it in a company meeting. You could do it yourself, or you could even send this directly to your customers, your clients, and they could do it themselves if you feel like they have got the tax nous to do it. So that's sort of what we really like to embrace here at CCH. And I think that the one thing about these practical tools that I wanted to sort of reiterate to you all on this call is that this is something that we write. This is content that is also available on our platform. So you can be assured that it is coming from a really, really large and strong team of subject matter experts that definitely have expertise in tax administration and tax law, and we definitely back that sort of content, as well as all of the content that is on the BOMA platform, just like it was on our platform itself.
So just to clarify here, that downloadable checklist will be attached as part of your email when that goes out. And if you're sending it as a social post, you can obviously get that pre-branded web page, which will have the longer form and the downloadable guide. I go back to the content library, click off company. We've obviously had end of financial year and we've had some content here, but Ben, I think this content is obviously still relevant past 30 June. And the good thing is that all our content is customizable, so you can change it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to jump into the small business tax changes?
Yep.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you're right. Like it is the 5th of July, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our business clients aren't still pooling their resources together and getting all of their tax information sorted out. So definitely what's happened over the past year or so is that some of this guidance that is available for tax year end is definitely something that is choice or election related, and as a result of that, we can really inform them of all of the opportunities that they have going forward. So I think that was the one thing that we wanted to definitely reiterate in terms of this launch as well, because it's definitely something that our business clients will need to understand. And of course, they're always still collating their information at the moment, even though that transactionally they might not be able to affect the outcome of their transactions that occur before 30th of June, because 30th of June has passed. There's definitely a lot of opportunities that they have in terms of making elections that will then affect their tax position, whether it comes to trading stock or perhaps there's accelerated depreciation or the way in which they're going to deal with Division 7A and whatnot. So it's definitely always, I always like this touch point to give a client and it's also something that you can just nudge them with as well, especially those ones that are looking to, well, you might have been expecting them to send you some information by now, but they haven't. So then you can always nudge them with some like little synopsis of all of the changes that have occurred over the past 12 months, things that they may need to be aware of. Oftentimes I've found that you advise a client of a tax change and it reminds them of, oh yeah, I did this 6 months ago and I'd forgotten about that. Thanks for reminding me, because I've actually got this piece of information that might be useful for my tax position. So we're aware of the tax changes all year as they occur, but obviously for individuals or high net worth individuals and stuff like that, they might just do it at the time and then forget about it later on. So it's definitely situations that we can sort of provide them with that clear information.
Something you said earlier, which I thought was useful, is you talked about using the titles to identify who it's for, and obviously with Australian state rules being different, we've you can see here Queensland, New South Wales. So where it is state-based, it will reflect that in the title. I don't know if there's anything do you want to add any comment to these ones, Ben?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the thing about that Queensland one, lovely picture there of the Story Bridge there being lit up at night, which is very, very lovely to add to an email there for our friends that are north of the Tweed River. Obviously, the land tax rules aren't applying solely to properties in Brisbane. It's obviously the entire state of Queensland. But the one thing that we wanted to sort of showcase as well is that CCHIQ doesn't only cover the federal income taxes, because I know that the accounting firms, you don't work in a vacuum. You have all sorts of clients and they're all at different stages of their tax life with varying needs for your expertise. And so then therefore, that's why we do focus on various state-based taxes. I think that it's important that we do let the affected clients know about this. But I think obviously the key part, I also, at least if one takeaway that you could have from this meeting today, is that as I've got there in literally the top line of the content that's right there on your screen, and that's the Queensland government has become the first state or territory to include interstate land holdings in the calculation of land tax. And I think that's a very, very operative, very, very clear message that I sort of wanted to sort of provide you as well. Like we've been down this road before. Where things have been included or excluded from various state taxes, and normally it just takes one, and then we might see other states popping up around the place as well. So it's a very, very interesting rule. So even if this is something that you might be, for example, a client. You might be an accounting firm in South Australia, and you think, well, I've got no use for the Queensland land tax event, or even the New South Wales property tax that's also sitting there as well, that was just sort of shown there as part of that the content library. These are new sort of rules that are being brought into the tax system, and so it's something that you probably do want to have a look at if your state does actually start to go down this road as well, down on this path as well, so that you've got a clear understanding of what it should be. If it does start to happen across the country,
and I'm guessing that there may be accountants who have clients in both, across states. So
yeah, that's right. Like, I mean, obviously with the Queensland rental property, Queensland land tax, that would definitely be there. I would imagine that there's definitely quite a number of clients from those of you who are based in New South Wales and Victoria that, probably have a rental property up there in some of the most beautiful landscapes of the country up there in, say, Mooloolaba or Caloundra or even Magnetic Island or something like that. It's not definitely something that is solely related to those of us that are running firms in Queensland, and 99% of our clients are Queenslanders. It's definitely something that will apply across the board. So, absolutely.
Ben, obviously, Australian election recently.
Yeah.
So do you see tax changes coming in the coming year based on that new government? And will that be content that you're adding to BOMA?
Well, yeah. So as I sort of mentioned when I sort of looked at the company tax loss sort of event that we've put up there on BOMA, we are having an upcoming federal budget, and it's slated, I believe, for the 25th of October. So it's actually not far away. It's probably, about maybe 12 or 13 weeks away. And are we expecting to see fireworks in terms of major tax reform? I'm not necessarily sure, but there are definitely items on the table that are there from last year that do remain unresolved. I don't think that the new government will make any major disruptions to that, but they may add and tinker with a few things that are there. So what's not in BOMA right now is items such as there was a 120% deduction that was on business items from the last federal budget. That's for businesses that go digital, or I think the other one was external training provider or something like that, just off the top of my head. And one thing that I definitely have the feeling that they may tinker with those sort of items. So those are sort of things that sort of we have discussed in CCHIQ in the past, but it's sort of, once it's become something that is absolutely relevant to discuss with your clients, then it's definitely something that we want to be putting on BOMA. It's okay for us to change our advice over time, because obviously information changes over time, but we don't want to mislead our clients either and focus them on these items that we're not really going to know about until the end of October.
Cool.
That's yeah.
Thank you so much. I know there are a few questions, and what we'll do is just go on to show you how you can get this amazing content. There's obviously, you can see a range of content on new news and legislation and things that will affect your clients. Charlie, if I pass to you, we can talk about how you can access this content within your BOMA subscription.
Great, thank you. Cool, so you can see my screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. So there are two ways to get the Wolters Kluwer content in your BOMA library. So number one, if you are already a Wolters Kluwer CCH IQ subscriber then you get it for free, and you can just ask your solutions manager for the coupon code and then enter it in the settings. If you're not sure who that person is, we'll actually be following this session up with an email, just with these instructions again, so you have them to hand, and we'll include in there an email that you can just then contact, and they will put you in touch with the right person. If you're not a subscriber of CCH or iFirm, you can add this content on for additional charge of $40 Australian per month. Very easy to turn that on. Just contact support, BOMA support, and just request that it be added to your account. We'll then take care of it in the background, and that charge will be added to your BOMA subscription. So super, super easy to get. And obviously I'm going to open it up for questions, and we've actually got 6 to start with. So first one was, is there any content available for BAS agents, Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. We can provide definitely content that will help people with an understanding of what they need to include into their I guess their books in terms of, you know, helping you provide you know, a more streamlined service in terms of ads. What we definitely focus on, however, is items that relate to changes in the tax landscape. So there'll definitely, I think, and it's definitely ripe in GST and those sort of items and PAYG income tax installments, that there will be some those adjustments as well. But there's definitely things in there, for example, like the single touch payroll, which probably are items that you'll be dealing with that are definitely available. And that's definitely a moving feast, that one. So I think that's sort of something that will be there over time and on launch as well. So yeah.
Fantastic. Another one, and this might be for you as well, Liz. Just on the difference between the articles that have been available for free in the Wolters Kluwer, or sorry, in the BOMA library. What's the difference between those articles available for free and I suppose this more premium content?
Yeah, and we have put probably a little bit more content than we maybe will going forward into freemium in the lead up to our launch. We wanted to give people a sense of what the Wolters Kluwer content is all about. So there has been a little bit in freemium, but going forward, the more technical content will be in premium. We have talked about when we first sort of got together, we were sort of saying 1 a week, but the thing, as Ben very rightly says, is that sometimes the events that are happening at the time mean that there's quite a lot of content, and at other times there might be less. So we're not holding Wolters Kluwer to a 1 a week necessarily. There may be more than that 1 week, and there may be a little bit less, but it will. But I guess so. The point is that whenever things change, and there's new legislation and there's new news that you need to let your clients know about, that's what will be included in BOMA. Ben, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to the point that yes, it's this is direct communication. So when you're looking at, for example, wage subsidy programs or SMSF rules in relation to underreported expenses or capital gains taxes as it relates to granny flat arrangements. These sort of things are direct communications that you'll be having with a subset of your clients. You're not necessarily going to be sending that out to everyone. So the idea of the direct communications is that you're providing them with much more higher level assistance than you would perhaps with the freemium articles, maybe sort of are a bit more lending themselves to sort of going out to everyone, which is fine, but it's that's sort of where the focus of IQ really comes down to. When those tax changes happen, your business and high net worth individual clients need to know about them, because they need to adjust their position because they may want to take advantage of a change in the tax law, or they obviously may have some risk that governmental risk that applies to their business or their current investment situation, and that investment risk needs to be mitigated because of this change in the tax law. And that's where you're coming in with that real direct analysis to provide them with an opportunity to engage you to make those changes.
I might just, there have been a couple of questions about how the sort of mechanics of adding it. So yes, if you have an IQ subscription, you need to contact Wolters Kluwer, because obviously at BOMA we don't know whether you have that. Now we will provide people with an email, because I think you know, a number of people have said, a couple of people have said they're not sure who their solutions managers is. So if we have an email from Wolters Kluwer, we'll send that out to everyone, so that that can go to Wolters Kluwer with a title, Premium Content in BOMA. But if I could just share screen briefly again, Charles, and that would just show everyone.
Of course, yeah.
What they would do. So what will happen then is it doesn't automatically get turned on for you. You get given a code from Wolters Kluwer, because they've said, yes, we agree, your IQ. And obviously, as Charlie said, if you're not an IQ and you want to add that for an additional fee, then you do talk to us. But if you are IQ, subscribing to IQ already, go into settings, come down to content library, and then you'll enter that code there, and that will automatically turn that library on. And when you go back into the content library, you will then see that you can access the premium library there, and you'll have that content, and you can sort, view all, or go back into libraries there.
And just answering Paul, I will follow up with you directly after this and see if we can't sort you out.
Yeah, I think, Paul, we've already had a note from you. We have confirmed that with Wolters Kluwer, and we and Andy is turning that on for you. So I think in your case that is turned on. Should be turned on for you, but you may need to just refresh your BOMA platform so that it brings it back up in case it's cached. But any problems, come back to Andy, because in your case we've sorted that out, I think, for you.
Brilliant. Well, look, if there are no more questions, just want to say thank you all for your time. And obviously, Ben, thank you so much for coming and giving us the benefit of your expertise and insight. And we'll look forward to seeing you all again on our next session. Have a great day. Thanks.